A beacon of American innovation and preservation.
The curators, we are historians first.
The unparalleled collections of the Smithsonian Institution have been deepening our understanding of world culture since the mid-1800s.
The Smithsonian is charged with simply telling the truth about American history.
Now, the world's largest museum complex is coming under fire.
We want the museums to talk about the history of our country in a fair manner.
Long-standing exhibits in jeopardy.
Not in a woke manner or in a racist manner.
President Trump escalating things on his social website, saying the Smithsonian is, quote, out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, and how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been.
Also see a story of resilience, of transformation, and of democracy, right? The promise of democracy and democracy realized. And I think that's the part that the president really just misses.
The president striking a different tone than his first term.
This museum is a beautiful tribute to so many American heroes.
Back in May, an NBC News investigation found at least 32 artifacts had already been removed from the museum.
The ridiculousness of it evades description. History is history.
The move further driving a wedge between already divided Americans.
I'm open to every entity undergoing a review.
They're not too woke. They honestly speak the truth about this country's history.
And joining us now to discuss is Scott Stolen, Executive Director of the Seattle Art Museum, also Brandon Bird, CEO and President of the Northwest African American Museum. Our thanks to both of you for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
Really appreciate it. So Scott, I want to start with you. First of all, how do you respond to the Trump's criticism of the Smithsonian in general?
Well, I think any time that you have an administration criticizing things that are facts, this is our history, and our history is very complicated, and there's a lot of parts of it that maybe we aren't so proud of, and there's parts of it that we are proud of, but we need to show both of those things. So I think anytime you're interfering with what a museum's doing and kind of trying to tell only one side of the story, it's problematic. And it's at the Smithsonian, it's one thing there. It's a whole other thing if that starts spreading out to other organizations and museums.
The president's comments imply that slavery should not be central to the national narrative about our history. So Brandon, what is the potential impact of a statement like that coming from the White House?
Well, obviously it's disappointing. As Scott just mentioned, we can't remove certain segments of our history if we're going to really share and fully understand the full arc of our nation's history. And slavery is at the fabric of that story. And so we owe it to all of us as citizens and within our field as stewards of that history to make sure we're telling a full and factual story to our local population and beyond.
So NAM exists to show the representation of African American history here in the Northwest. Why is it important to tell that whole story, to preserve that whole story?
If not us, who? Yeah. Certainly we take that extremely seriously as the stewards of sharing the African American story of the Pacific Northwest and beyond as the only Northwest museum dedicated to that story of the African American experience. Again, piggybacking off of what I said just a few minutes ago, it's fundamental for each of us as a citizen of this beautiful country to understand the full arc of our history, the things that we've done that are exceptional, and the things that we need to ensure we learn from and improve upon with each generation moving forward.
And when you look at the country and how beautifully woven it is with culture and ethnicity and all of that's part of our history, all of that's captured in a museum like the Seattle Art Museum. So what do you see as some of the risks of removing some of that and sterilizing some of that history and not having exhibits where people can come and learn and share?
Well, we want to tell a story about all of our audience, not just a particular singular audience or a singular history, but multiple stories. And for a long time, museums hadn't done that. And we've done a lot of work to try to make that we're selling that complete story, and we don't want to go back to that. And I think it's also a danger if you're having any administration, it doesn't matter what party it is, that's controlling that narrative. We want to be basing our stories on principles and values and telling a complete history from multiple perspectives, and that's the role of museums.
Do you worry about any political interference or political influence, especially when we know that federal dollars potentially are at stake and museums rely on that kind of funding?
Yeah, it's real. I mean, all of our federal funding actually has been cut, so that has already happened. So there's one thing off the table.
Already, it's already happened.
All gone.
How much are we talking about?
It's between multiple years, 400 to 700,000 is gone. So that's real. So that's already happened, and you can kind of go across the region and find nearly every museum that's in a similar position to that. So that part is real. I think the other concern is there's been threats about stripping nonprofit status if museums don't comply with some of the narratives that are out there. So that's something out there. It's a threat. It's not something that we're anticipating coming on the horizon, but it could be real. And I think what we've learned through all of this is take the threats as a reality and prepare for them.
So when you first said that to me, I felt like it was a gut punch a little bit. How did it feel to you, both of you, Brendan, when you found out that those federal dollars are gone?
Certainly, it is something we have to take seriously. It is challenging regardless of the size of each individual nonprofit. Business is hard. Nonprofit organizations are hard to maintain. So any reduction of potential revenue is challenging, to say the least. With that said, most nonprofit organizations are predominantly supported through private donations and support. And so this is a moment in time where we really count on that support, and we ask our supporters to really lean into our values and the values that they align with in order to ensure that we're in the strongest position possible to advance our mission.
I know both of you are part of the larger community of people who bring in exhibits, protect our museums. I'm sure you're all talking with each other. Just as an African-American person, I think of the National Museum that has so much of our national history when it comes to our African-American culture. When you look at the threats against museums across the country, not just here, is there anything that keeps you up at night? Do you worry that some of the history will literally be stripped away, disappeared forever?
Yeah, I'll jump in there first. I think what we are seeing is an increased momentum around segments of our country attempting to remove chapters from our
or even rewrite.
Or rewrite, and we've seen that in the arc of our history. And so the acceleration around the momentum is stressful. Both as the lead steward of a beautiful museum, but also as an individual citizen. With that said, we've been here before, historically, as a country, and we have examples that we can rely upon in order to remain courageous, supplement our endurance, and really lean into our mission. Because it's through the advancement of our mission where we're really able to elevate our commonality with our diverse population, and really create a level of dialogue that honestly contributes to the advancement of our region and our nation as a whole.
And Scott, let's just be real for a second and talk about what could be lost should this agenda move forward on the national level and trickles down to local levels, a city like Seattle. What could be lost for future generations?
Like the fear is that we're not telling a complete story, or that we lose the ability to be a place that feels that it's truth. And I think that's something that's so important. We want museums to be a place that feel that it is truth, and we're telling facts, and we're be able to share multiple stories in a place that people feel safe in having those conversations. And if we lose that, we're going to lose a really important piece. And I think what's important in this whole conversation is that the fact is that museums are one of the pieces that are wanting to be controlled only speaks to the power of museums. Museums are important. Museums are a place of which we do feel like it is telling that story and those truths, and that's partly why it's being attacked. So I take kind of solace in that. I think there's a positive thing of that museums are really important in our community, and that's why at these moments it's time we need to stand up for our principles and our values and be able to hold fast.
So my last question for both of you, and I guess it comes from the heart for me. I don't hear a super loud, wait a minute, stop everything, hold on a second. What can people do if they're feeling that inside, but they don't know what they can do and they don't want to see a revisionist sort of agenda?
Again, I'll take that first.
Sure.
Support your local museums. Support your local cultural heritage organizations. If you have some travel anticipated for the remaining of the summer or throughout the remainder of the year, visit those local institutions. The story of our country is complex and full of depth. Specifically, the African American historical context in the full arc of our nation's history is at times extremely hard to absorb, but through that understanding, you're able to appreciate the remarkable successes and resiliency of that same group of individuals to which we stand on the shoulders of today. And so there is much to celebrate and to appreciate. But in order to do that authentically, we must understand the factual truths of that story equally authentically.
I'm going to give you the final word, Scott.
Sure, I would second what Brandon said. Come out to museums, be part of this conversation. It's also, though, make your voice be heard. Don't sit passively by this. If you see something that you're not agreeing with, it's important to kind of say so, and say so to your representatives, but say so in your community and be part of those activities that are happening at our museums and cultural organizations. We truly do need you now more than ever.
And get your kids involved.
Absolutely.
Right? My deep appreciation to both of you, Brandon Bird, Scott Stillen from the Seattle Art Museum, the the Northwest African American Art Museum. Thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Joyce.
Thanks.
Thank you.